But I remember I was bagging groceries at Alpha Beta, and I was kind of unhappy because the grocery union, or the clerks union, had us bag boys join the union, and I was not particularly happy that they were taking $8 or $10 a month out of my paycheck, which was meager as it was, and of course, working in a grocery store, you meet a lot of pretty grumpy people. So I heard about the lifeguard tryouts, and I thought, well, you know what, that sounds better than this, so I tried that. The tryouts were, I think, in early April. Then lifeguard training was during Easter week in '68, and then I got hired at the end of that process. I think there was 7 or 8 of us that got hired right then, and then the other guys didn't start, I think, until summer. Phil Stubbs came to me, the lifeguard captain, and said, Three Bay, with the nice weather we're having, wants to have a lifeguard earlier than normal. Are you interested in working the weekends? I said, absolutely. So next thing I know, I'm up at Three Bay, and those were classy people. They were just great to me, and so that's kind of how the early career started. We were in the old lifeguard headquarters. We were the last class to go through that, right next to the base of the pier. And it was Captain Stubbs running the training, and Lou Matthey, who was a lieutenant, being his assistant.
Okay.
Yeah.
Now, do you recall any other trainees that you went through training with? And do you still stay in contact with any of them?
Yeah, well, the Ericksons were there, both Bruce and Bob. Mm-hmm. And there was a kid named Joe Lentz. And there was a kid named Jesse West, who was the brother of another lifeguard who was already working there, Bart West, who eventually became a lieutenant. And then I think there was Bob Owens, if I'm not mistaken, and I've stayed in contact somewhat with Bob periodically. We run into each other at the gym or something, but it's very scattered. The Ericksons I see periodically. I do stay in contact with Tom Metzger, who was already working as a lifeguard, and then later, I think in '71, Bob Elwell came in and tried out and got hired, and he and I and Tom Metzger, in fact, have lunch every month to this day, and I really enjoy going to the reunions and seeing those guys. I would run into Jim Holloway once in a rare while when he was community services director. Mm-hmm. But and I really like seeing Lou Matthey. He was such a positive influence. When we were starting training, right. and when we were sitting in towers and everything, Lou was just a great guy to. He was always upbeat. He always had funny stories, but he was, he always had your back.
Well, you mentioned Phil Stubbs. Was Phil Stubbs captain at the time?
He was, yeah, he was captain. And
what's your take on Phil Stubbs?
He was the right guy in the right place at the right time, and there was nobody I ever worked for that was as good of an employer. And I say that because I think of Phil Stubbs as my employer as compared to Dick Hazard, who was the lifeguard chief. And I say that because mostly Dick would come in and come out of the scene almost in the shadows, and Phil was with us every day. He was not an administrative captain. He was a working captain who was out on the beach, and he took a little heat from that from some of the other department heads in other cities, because they wanted to try to elevate lifeguarding, to a different level, and they felt that between chiefs and captains, those should be purely administrative. But Phil wasn't like that.